Hi, this is Chris Haughey. Thank you for joining me on Create with Chris. Today's project is very different from what I normally do. I think you're going to be amazed at how easy it is to create. If you're looking for a great hostess gift for Easter or just a quick Easter project, this is quick and easy. It's so much fun and no prior experience is required. I love a project that doesn't require a lot of time or supplies, and this one is perfect. Great stencil surface, and I decided to use chalk paint with this project. It covers really well. I don't need a primer on it, nor do I need a varnish. I'm using an 1.5" flat brush just to cover the surface. I like to have nice long strokes. I kind of dipped out of the bottle, but I did get a little moisture on my brush. If you find it's not flowing smoothly, just add a little bit of water to either the paint on a palette or on your brush. I'm using fired clay for the carrot. Again, this is just a real simple coverage. The paint is just beautiful. It goes on nice and smooth and opaque, so it's just that quick, and this is in real time. On the frame, I wanted it to look a little wood grain, so I picked up some espresso on a damp paper towel, and I decided just to slide it across to see what it would look like. I'm using MDF, so I'm not getting wood grain, but I do get a really nice, almost a stained effect. And look how easily this goes on. And it's just a little bit of moisture on my paper towel, and that makes it not quite so dark and heavy, and it dries almost immediately. How easy is that? Once the surface is dry and lightly sanded, I decided I wanted it a little more distressed. So I'm still using that espresso paint and my texture brush, and you can use any scruffy brush. The wetter the brush, the softer the striations will be. Just starting at one end and pulling across, and then I'll turn it around and start from the other end and pull across. That way there's no stop and start lines in the middle, and just gives that little bit of aged distress look. And I wanted to keep this very minimal because of the lettering on it. I didn't want it to be super busy. After I let that dry, I decided to put a little bit of splattering on it. I'm using my splattering brush. Some people use toothbrushes. Whatever works for you. I like the splatter brush because it keeps my fingers nice and clean. And I just thin down the espresso. The thinner the paint, the softer, the bigger the splattering will be. I really like that distressed look, so I decided to put a little bit on the carrot. I went side to side. Not only does it make it a little bit aged and distressed, but also it kind of creates those ridges on the carrot. And why not add some splattering? It's such a simple technique, but it really adds a lot of interest. I positioned my stencil on the surface, and I wanted to make sure it was straight up and down and even from the top and the bottom. And I always use some painter's tape that keeps the project from shifting around. I do not only the top but the bottom. I've loaded my spectacular stencil brush with the black chalk paint, kind of brushed it on my paper towel to get rid of any excess. Just kind of lightly, I alternate between a swirl and a stipple. For the bunny, I had the stipple because it was a bigger area, and when I swirl you get more of a dry brush, so I wanted it just a little more solid and opaque. If you've never stenciled with chalk paint, it is ideal because it is a thicker bodied paint. There's less concern about it kind of running under the edges of the stencil, which means you will be more likely to achieve clean, crisp edges. Overloading the brush is the biggest downfall to stenciling not coming out perfectly. And you can see how quickly I can cover this stencil before I have to reload. And I'm just going over there. The stencil, you can see the white edges if it needs to have a second coat. It's always better to apply 2 thin coats as opposed to 1 heavy coat. And I just go back and kind of touch up any areas that are just a little bit thin. And you can always lift the stencil up and peek underneath to see if all of these areas are filled in really nice. This is the most fun part, peeling that off, and look how beautiful that is. Just absolutely love that contrast, that distressed background. When I add that frame on there, it's just perfect. I'm using a hot glue gun to attach the frame to the surface. I'm not sure, well, I had the hot glue gun out so I could put the greenery on the carrot, and I thought I'll just go ahead and use it on the plaque, but I would recommend using a white tacky glue. The problem is with the hot glue on a frame like this, by the time I went all the way around the edge, it started to harden up, so I had trouble getting it to lay really flat. The greenery on the carrot, I just snipped off a little bit. I had a hanging vine in my dining room, and I thought it wouldn't miss a couple little pieces. So I know you can pick up greenery at the dollar store, at Hobby Lobby. There's a lot of places that carry the greenery. I just put a couple pieces on. I just wanted enough to kind of dress it up, and this is where I do use the hot glue. And just press that onto it. I laid it front side down so it could harden. I used quite a bit of glue. I wanted to put a little bit of a bow on it. I went with a double, just a shoestring or shoe bow tie, and I've just put 2 lengths of jute, attached a little bit of glue on the back of that, and then positioned it right there at the top where the greenery meets the carrot, and I think it turned out so cute. I really was intending on cutting those long hanging tails off, but I really liked the way they hung down. I thought that just added a little more charm to it, and it just makes it a little more rustic. Love the effect, just that little bit of orange with that plaque. Make sure to glue down that tip, and I thought it looked beautiful. I had a piece of burlap. I just cut some strips. I like a messy bow. I think that's such a fun bow to create because it doesn't have to be perfect and you don't need to struggle with it. So I just cut lengths of ribbon, probably about 4-5 inches long, and just created an X, kind of cross them over. And then I take a piece of jute and just kind of tuck it around the middle and tie it really, really tight, and pull that in there. And after it's tied, then it can be fluffed up, trimmed up, and I took some of that jute and I frayed it out. I like those little raggedy ends on it. And I have the larger black and white check is wired, so I was able to kind of manipulate that a little bit more, which helped. And just trim it up nice and tidy. Fluff it up really well. Okay, so this is where I need your help. I decided after I did this, I put a black button in the center of it, and just kind of dresses up that middle, adds a little more charm, and then I popped a smaller white button on top of that. But I need your opinion. Do you think it looks better with a bow or without a bow? I kind of liked it both ways, but I ended up leaving the bow off. I didn't know if it was too busy with the bow. Let me know what you think. I think the bow's really cute. This has been a really fun project. I love how it turns out, and I hope you realize that quick and easy doesn't have to look that way. I want to remind you to hit the bell and subscribe. That way you won't miss out on future videos. Be sure to let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to our next painting adventure together.